Jake Morrison stood in the docking bay of the Horizon's Edge and watched the airlock cycle through its sequence. His dress uniform felt stiff against his shoulders, nothing like the combat gear he used to wear. That was 15 years ago, though. He was a diplomat now, at least that's what his papers said. Captain Lisa Chen stepped beside him. She was a small woman with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Remember, Jake, we need these mining rights. The Valdrine Empire controls half the outer rim. We smile, we bow, we get the signature. Jake nodded. He had read the briefing files 3 times. The Valdrine were an old species, powerful and proud. They looked down on most other races in the galaxy. Humans were new to space, barely 2 generations out among the stars. To the Valdrine, humans were children playing with toys they didn't understand. The airlock opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure. The Valdrine delegation entered in a formation that spoke of military precision. They were tall, easily 7 feet, with crystalline skin that caught the light and threw it back in rainbow patterns. Their bodies were angular and sharp, like they had been carved from living gemstone. They moved with a grace that made Jake's human eyes struggle to track them properly. At the center of the group walked Princess Varaseth. She wore robes that seemed to float around her body, and her crystalline features held an expression of pure boredom. Her eyes swept across the human delegation like she was examining insects under glass. Captain Chen stepped forward and bowed slightly. Your Highness, welcome aboard the Horizon's Edge. We are honored by your presence. The princess said nothing. One of her advisors, a thin Valdrine with darker crystal formations on his shoulders, spoke instead. Princess Varaseth acknowledges your greeting. You may present your delegation. Quote, Lisa gestured to each person in turn. When she reached Jake, she said, This is Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison, our chief negotiator for resource agreements. Jake stepped forward and extended his hand. The universal human gesture of greeting. It was instinct, something he had done 1,000 times with 1,000 different people. Princess Varaseth's eyes locked onto his outstretched hand. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Her expression shifted from boredom to something darker. Something that made the hair on the back of Jake's neck stand up. It was the same feeling he used to get right before combat, when his body knew danger was coming before his mind caught up. She pulled back, as if his hand was covered in poison. Her voice came out cold and sharp. A mammal dares to touch royalty? The translator devices everyone wore crackled with her next words. You'll be dead in a minute, human. The Valdrine guards behind her began to laugh. Their skin flickered with colors that Jake's briefing had told him meant amusement. The sound wasn't pleasant. It reminded Jake of glass scraping against metal. Jake slowly lowered his hand. He felt Captain Chen's presence beside him, tense and ready to intervene. But something in him, some part that remembered holding a position alone for 3 days while enemies surrounded him, refused to back down. He smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. We'll see about that, Your Highness, he said quietly. The laughter stopped. Princess Varaseth tilted her head, studying him like he was a puzzle she couldn't quite solve. Then she turned to her advisor and spoke in her own language, too fast for the translators to keep up. The advisor's eyes widened. He stepped forward and addressed Captain Chen. The princess invokes Calthresh, the custom of trial by combat. Your officer has insulted the royal house through his insolence. He must face a champion of her choosing. Or, your petition for mining rights is dismissed, and humanity will be barred from Valdrine space for the next century. Lisa's hand gripped Jake's arm hard enough to hurt. Your Highness, surely we can resolve this, through conversation. Lieutenant Commander Morrison meant no disrespect. Humans greet each other through physical contact. It's our custom. Princess Varaseth finally spoke directly to them. I know your customs, Captain. I also know that your species is weak. You breathe oxygen like children learning to swim. Your bones break easily. Your strength is pathetic compared to real warriors. She looked at Jake with something that might have been pity, But you spoke to me with defiance in your voice. Either your officer faces Calthresh, or you leave now with nothing." The Valdrine delegation turned and walked back toward the airlock. Princess Varaseth paused at the entrance. "You have 6 hours to prepare your champion. The trial will be held in the Grand Arena on Valdrine Station. All of my people will watch. They will see what happens to mammals who forget their place." Then they were gone, and the airlock sealed shut behind them. Captain Chen turned on Jake. "What were you thinking?" "I was thinking she's used to everyone bowing and scraping," Jake said. He walked to the viewport and looked out at the massive Valdrine station floating in space. "I was thinking, someone needed to show her that humans don't scare easy. Now you have to fight one of their champions," Lisa said. Her voice was tight with controlled anger. "Do you understand what that means? The Valdrine evolved on a high-gravity world. They're faster and stronger than us by a significant margin. Their champions train their entire lives for combat. No outsider has ever won a Calthresh trial." Jake kept looking at the station. She said, "I'd be dead in a minute." She probably meant it. "I know." Jake turned away from the viewport. "But I've been on the wrong end of bad odds before. I'm still here. Call the crew together. I need to talk to the medical officer about Valdrine physiology. And I need Kate Palmer to pull up everything we have on their fighting champions." Lisa stared at him for a long moment. Then she sighed. "You're not going to back down, are you? Would you?" "No," she admitted. "But I'm not the one who has to fight." Jake started walking toward his quarters. He needed to change out of the dress uniform and into something he could move in. 6 hours. That's enough time to learn how to break crystal. Behind him, Captain Chen was already on the communication system, calling the senior staff to an emergency meeting. Jake heard her voice fade as he walked down the corridor. His mind was already shifting into the mode he thought he'd left behind when he became a diplomat. He was analyzing, planning, preparing for combat. Princess Varaseth had made a mistake. She had judged him based on his species and assumed he would be easy to kill. Jake had seen that kind of arrogance before. It usually ended badly for the arrogant ones. He had 6 hours to make sure she learned that lesson personally. The conference room aboard the Horizon's Edge was crowded with worried faces. Jake sat at the head of the table, still calm while everyone else looked like they were attending his funeral before he was dead. Dr. Chris Bennett pulled up a holographic display of Valdrine anatomy. The doctor was young for his position, but he had studied alien biology for 10 years. Right now, he looked sick. "Their muscle density is 3 times ours," Chris said, pointing to the rotating image. "Their skeletal structure is based on crystalline formations that are incredibly strong. They evolved on a planet with 2.3 times Earth's gravity." "Lieutenant Commander, with all respect, you're going to be fighting something built like a tank that moves like a tiger." Kate Palmer, Jake's second in command, brought up video footage on another screen. "This is Commander Thexnall. The princess chose him as her champion 2 hours ago. He's won 47 Calthresh trials. 18 of those ended in his opponent's death." The video showed a Valdrine warrior moving through an arena. His crystalline skin was darker than most, almost black, with veins of deep purple running through it. He moved with terrifying speed, closing distance with his opponent in the blink of an eye. The fight lasted maybe 20 seconds before the opponent, some alien species Jake didn't recognize, was lying broken on the arena floor. "He's fast," Jake said, watching the replay. "He's lethal," Kate corrected. "Jake, there's no shame in backing out. We can find another way to get those mining rights." "No, we can't," Captain Chen said from the doorway. She walked in carrying a datapad. "I just got word from Earth Command. The Valdrine Empire has filed an official complaint. If we withdraw from the trial, we'll be marked as cowards. No one in this sector will negotiate with us. We'll lose more than mining rights. We'll lose credibility with every species watching." Jake nodded slowly. He had expected something like that. The Valdrine weren't just testing him. They were testing all of humanity. "Tell me about the arena," he said. Chris pulled up new images. It's carved from a single asteroid. Natural rock, no artificial gravity. The Valdrine set it to match their home world's gravity for trials. You'll be fighting at 2.3 times what you're used to. They're stacking the deck, Kate said angrily. Of course they are, Jake replied. They want me to fail. They want humans to look weak in front of the whole sector. He stood up and walked to the holographic display of Thexnal. But they made a mistake. What mistake? Lisa asked. They think strength and speed are everything. Jake zoomed in on the Valdrine's joints, where different crystal formations met. Chris, what happens if you apply focused pressure to these connection points? The doctor frowned, then his eyes widened. The crystal structures are strong, but they're rigid. If you could generate enough force at the exact right angle, you might cause fractures. But Jake, you'd need tremendous precision, and you'd have to survive long enough to find an opening. I'm good at surviving, Jake said. He had spent 3 days in a bunker on Kepler 442b, surrounded by enemy forces. He knew how to endure. What else can you tell me about Valdrine physiology? For the next 3 hours, Chris walked Jake through everything they knew. The Valdrine respiratory system was efficient, but had a weakness. If they overexerted themselves, they needed recovery time. Their eyesight was better than human vision in most light spectrums, but they struggled with rapid changes in brightness. Their sense of balance was excellent, but it depended on their crystalline inner ear structures. Kate pulled up tactical data on every fight Thexnal had won. Jake watched them all, making notes, looking for patterns. The champion was aggressive, always closing distance fast. He relied on his superior strength to overpower opponents quickly. Most fights lasted less than a minute. He's used to winning fast, Jake said. His opponents panic when they realize how strong he is. They make mistakes. You won't panic, Kate said. It wasn't a question. No. Jake agreed. I won't. Lieutenant Danny Rogers from the engineering section spoke up. He had been quiet until now. I've been looking at the arena specifications. The gravity field isn't perfectly uniform. There are variations near the walls where the generators create overlap zones. If you could lure him into those areas, you might get a slight advantage. Jake looked at the young engineer with new respect. Good thinking. What else? The arena floor is natural rock, uneven in places. At high gravity, that matters more. Your opponent will expect you to struggle with the weight. If you can use the terrain against him, turn his assumptions into weaknesses. I'm listening, Jake said. They planned for another hour. Captain Chen arranged for Jake to use the ship's high-gravity training room. It could only go up to 1.8 times Earth normal. But it was better than nothing. Jake spent the next 2 hours in there, moving, testing his limits, teaching his body to adjust. Every step felt like he was carrying another person on his back. His muscles screamed. His lungs burned. But he kept moving. He had survived worse. He would survive this. Kate found him in the training room with an hour left before the trial. She watched him struggle through basic movements that would have been easy under normal gravity. You know this is crazy, right? She said. Jake paused, breathing hard. Yeah. You could die in that arena. Could die crossing the street too, Jake said. He straightened up, fighting against the gravity. You remember what I told you when you first joined my team? Humans don't kit, Kate recited. Humans don't kit, Jake repeated. The princess thinks I'll be dead in a minute. She thinks humans are weak because we're not built like living weapons. But she doesn't understand what makes us dangerous. What's that? We're stubborn. We adapt. We refuse to accept when something's impossible. Jake walked toward the exit, his body already adjusting to the high gravity. The Valdrine are stronger and faster. But I don't have to be stronger or faster. I just have to be smarter. And I have to last longer than 1 minute. In his quarters, Jake changed into the combat suit that the crew had modified for him. It was lightweight, but reinforced at the joints. Chris had loaded it with medical nano-injectors that would release pain suppressors and stimulants if his body started to shut down. It might give him a few extra minutes. He looked at himself in the mirror. 15 years ago, he had been a Marine. He had fought in places where human soldiers weren't supposed to survive. He had held positions that tactical computers said were indefensible. He had learned that humans had one advantage over every other species they encountered. They were too stupid to know when to give up. Captain Chen's voice came over the intercom. "Jake, it's time. The shuttle is ready to take you to the arena." Jake took one last deep breath of normal air. Then he walked out of his quarters and headed for the shuttle bay. The crew he passed in the corridors stopped and watched him go. Some saluted. Some just stared. In the shuttle, Lisa sat across from him. "You don't have to prove anything to them," she said quietly. "Yes, I do," Jake replied. That princess looked at me and saw something weak. Something that would die easy. She's going to learn today that humans don't die on anyone else's schedule. The shuttle launched, heading for the Valdrine station. Through the viewport, Jake could see the massive arena carved into the asteroid. Lights glowed around it. Thousands of Valdrine were gathering to watch. They expected a quick execution. They expected to see human weakness confirmed. Jake intended to disappoint them. The arena was even more massive than the images had suggested. Jake stood in the entrance tunnel and felt the weight of the gravity pressing down on him like a physical force. Every breath was work. Every step took effort. His body screamed at him that this was wrong, that he should be lighter, that something was pressing him into the ground. He ignored it. Pain was just information. The gravity was just another obstacle. The tunnel opened onto the arena floor, and sound hit him like a wall. Thousands of Valdrine filled the seats, carved into the asteroid rock. Their voices created a noise that echoed off the stone. Alien words mixing into a roar that meant the same thing in any language. They wanted blood. Jake walked to the center of the arena. The floor was rough stone, uneven like Danny had said. He could use that. The lighting came from bioluminescent strips embedded in the rock, casting everything in a blue-green glow that hurt his eyes. Across the arena, Commander Thexnal emerged from the opposite tunnel. The Valdrine champion was even bigger in person. His dark, crystal skin absorbed the light, making him look like a moving shadow. He walked to the center of the arena like he owned it, which he probably did after 47 victories. Above the arena floor, in a royal box carved from pure crystal, Princess Varaseth sat watching. Her expression was the same bored look she had worn on the ship. She expected this to be over quickly. An announcer's voice boomed through the arena, speaking in Valdrine. Jake's translator turned it into words he could understand. Calthresh trial between Commander Thexnal, champion of the First House, and the human Jake Morrison. Combat continues until death or submission. No weapons. May the stronger warrior prevail. A Valdrine official stepped between them. He was old. His crystal skin clouded with age. "Do you understand the rules, human? No weapons. Fight until someone gives up or dies," Jake said. "I understand. You may withdraw now with no dishonor," the official said. "Thexnal has killed many opponents. You are not equipped to face him." Jake looked past the official to Thexnal. The champion was watching him with an expression that might have been curiosity. "I'm not withdrawing," Jake said. The official shook his head sadly and walked to the edge of the arena. A bell sounded, deep and resonant. The trial had begun. Thexnal moved like lightning. 1 second he was standing 20 feet away. The next, he was right in front of Jake. His crystalline fist aimed at Jake's head. Jake threw himself sideways, barely avoiding the strike. The champion's fist hit the rock floor where Jake had been standing and left a crater. Jake rolled to his feet, his body protesting the extra gravity. Thexnal was already turning, already attacking again. Jake dodged, using the uneven floor to his advantage. The champion expected him to be slower, to struggle with the gravity. Jake did struggle, but he had spent hours learning how to move under the extra weight. A fist caught Jake in the ribs. Pain exploded through his chest and he heard something crack. The medical nano-injectors in his suit activated automatically, flooding his system with suppressors. The pain faded to a dull ache. Jake kept moving. Thexnall pressed forward, attacking with combinations that blurred together. Jake blocked what he could and dodged the rest. Every impact felt like being hit with a steel bar. His arms went numb from blocking strikes. The crowd was roaring, but Jake couldn't hear individual voices anymore. Everything had narrowed down to the fight. Thexnall and the arena, and the gravity trying to crush him. 30 seconds passed. Then a minute. Jake saw the change in Thexnall's expression. Surprise. The champion had expected this to be over already. His opponents usually broke under the first assault, overwhelmed by his speed and strength. But Jake was still standing, still moving, still fighting. "You're tougher than you look, mammal," Thexnall said in accented but clear human language. "You're slower than I expected," Jake replied, and launched his own attack. He wasn't trying to match the Valdrine's strength. That would be suicide. Instead, Jake targeted the joints that Chris had shown him, the places where crystal formations connected. He struck with precision, using his smaller size to get inside Thexnall's guard. The champion blocked most of the strikes, but Jake felt one connect solidly with the knee joint. Thexnall's expression flickered. Pain? Surprise? Jake couldn't tell, but he had found a weakness. 2 minutes passed, then 3. The crowd was getting quieter. This wasn't going the way they expected. In the royal box, Princess Varaseth was leaning forward, her bored expression replaced by something else. Interest, maybe. Or concern. Thexnall changed tactics. He stopped trying to end the fight quickly and started to use his reach advantage, keeping Jake at a distance with long strikes. It was smarter, more careful. The champion was adapting, but Jake was adapting too. He noticed that Thexnall favored his right side, that his recovery time after big strikes was slightly longer, that he had a tell before launching power attacks. Jake filed each piece of information away, building a mental map of the champion's fighting style. 4 minutes. Jake's body was failing. The gravity was grinding him down, and Thexnall's strikes were taking their toll. His ribs were definitely broken. His left arm wasn't responding right. Blood ran down his face from a cut above his eye. But he was still standing, still fighting. Thexnall launched another combination, and Jake saw the opening he had been waiting for. The champion overextended on a right cross, putting all his weight on his left leg. Jake dropped low, used the uneven floor for leverage, and drove his elbow into the side of Thexnall's knee joint with every bit of strength he had left. The sound was like breaking glass amplified 1,000 times. Thexnall's knee joint shattered, crystalline fragments spraying across the arena floor. The champion roared and fell, catching himself with his hands. The arena went silent. Jake staggered back, breathing hard. His vision was blurry, and his legs felt like they might give out any second. But Thexnall was down, his left leg useless. Crystal shards glittering around him. "Submit," Jake gasped out. "You can't fight on one leg." Thexnall's head came up. His eyes blazed with fury. "I am a champion of the first house. I do not submit to mammals." He pushed himself up on one leg, keeping his weight off the shattered knee. Jake felt a sick respect for the warrior. Thexnall knew he was beaten, but his pride wouldn't let him quit. "Fine," Jake said. "Then we keep going." They fought for 6 more minutes. It was brutal and ugly. Thexnall, crippled but still dangerous, fought with the desperation of someone defending their honor. Jake, broken and bleeding, fought with the stubbornness of a human who refused to die. In the end, it was exhaustion that won. Thexnall's good leg finally gave out, and he collapsed to the arena floor. He tried to push himself up one more time, but his arms wouldn't support him. I submit, he said quietly. The human wins. Jake stood over him, swaying on his feet. He looked up at the royal box. Princess Varaseth was standing now, her hands gripping the railing. Her expression was something Jake couldn't read. He smiled at her, blood on his teeth. More than a minute, he said, though he knew she couldn't hear him from this distance. Then his legs gave out, and he sat down hard on the arena floor. Medical personnel from both sides rushed onto the field. Jake let them work, too tired to protest. The crowd was silent. They had come to see a human die quickly. Instead, they had watched him defeat their champion through pure, stubborn endurance. As the medical team carried Jake out on a stretcher, he heard the Valdrine beginning to talk among themselves. The tone wasn't mocking anymore. It was something else. Respect. Jake woke up in the medical bay of the Horizon's Edge. His entire body was wrapped in regeneration bandages that hummed with energy. Dr. Chris Bennett was standing over him, running a scanner across his chest. 3 broken ribs, fractured left arm, severe bruising across 40% of your body, and a concussion, Chris said without looking up from his scanner. You should be dead or in a coma. Instead, you're awake after 6 hours. Humans are ridiculous. Did we win? Jake asked. His voice came out rough. You won, Chris confirmed. You shattered Thexnal's knee joint. The Valdrine medical team spent 4 hours putting him back together. He'll recover, but he's going to have a permanent limp. You ended his career as a champion. Jake tried to sit up, but his body refused to cooperate. Where's the captain? Dealing with the political fallout, Chris said. Jake, what you did in that arena changed everything. The entire sector watched that fight. Every species that thought humans were weak saw you take down a Valdrine champion. Do you understand what that means? Before Jake could answer, the medical bay door opened. Captain Lisa Chen walked in, and she wasn't alone. Behind her came Princess Varaseth, with 2 guards. Doctor, give us the room. Chris looked like he wanted to protest, but he gathered his equipment and left. The guards stayed by the door while Princess Varaseth approached Jake's bed. She studied him in silence for a long moment. You should not have survived, she said finally. Thexnal has killed beings stronger than you, faster than you, better equipped for combat than any human. But I did survive, Jake said. I told you I would. You told me I would see what happens after a minute, she corrected. The fight lasted 11 minutes. I was wrong about you. About all humans. She pulled a chair close to the bed and sat down. Her guards shifted uncomfortably. Apparently, Valdrine princesses didn't usually sit in the presence of other species. I have spent the last 6 hours learning about your people, Varaseth continued. Your history, your evolution, your wars. Humans are persistence hunters. You evolved by chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. You survived ice ages that should have killed you. You turned hostile worlds into homes. You don't know when to quit. Recrossited. You considerant. One of that. And the center. Recrossited. And those. Is that a compliment? Jake asked. It's an observation, she said. The Valdrine are stronger and faster than humans. We evolved as apex predators on a harsh world. We have ruled this sector for 1,000 years because no one could match our physical capabilities. But we never developed your endurance. Your ability to continue when continuing seems impossible. Lisa stepped forward. Your Highness, why are you here? No. Varaseth looked at the captain, then back at Jake. Because I made a mistake. I judged your species based on incomplete information. I assumed that physical weakness meant overall weakness. I was wrong. And being wrong is dangerous for someone in my position. She stood and walked to the viewport. Outside, the Valdrine station rotated slowly in space. My empire faces threats that we haven't told the other species about. The Hive Expanse is pushing into our territory from the galactic north. They fight with numbers, endless waves that don't stop coming. We crush them with superior strength, But they keep coming. Thousands die on both sides, and we make no progress. You need allies, Lisa said. We need humans, Varaseth corrected. We need soldiers who can hold a position for days without relief, who can endure conditions that would break my warriors, who can take damage that would kill most species, and keep fighting. She turned back to face them. I watched your man fight my champion. He should have died in the first minute. Instead, he adapted. He studied Thexnol's patterns. He found weaknesses. He endured. Jake finally managed to sit up, ignoring the pain. You want to change the terms of the agreement? Yes, Varaseth said. The mining rights you came for are meaningless. I'm prepared to offer a military alliance, joint training programs, shared technology, access to Valdrine space and resources. In exchange for what? Lisa asked carefully. Human soldiers to fight alongside Valdrine warriors. Human engineers to solve problems we can't. Human stubbornness to balance Valdrine pride. Varaseth smiled slightly. I insulted you on your ship. I said you would be dead in a minute. Instead, you proved that humans don't die on anyone else's schedule. That's exactly what we need. Lisa looked at Jake. He could see the calculation in her eyes. This was beyond her authority to approve. But it was also an opportunity that might never come again. An alliance with the Valdrine Empire would give humanity a powerful friend in a dangerous sector. I'll need to contact Earth Command, Lisa said. This kind of agreement requires approval from the highest levels. Of course, Varaseth said. I will contact my father, the Emperor. But I believe we can reach an agreement that benefits both our peoples. She looked at Jake again. Your man defeated my champion fairly. By Valdrine custom, that gives him the right to make one request of me. Anything within my power to grant. Jake thought about that. Just one? One request, she confirmed. I want Thexnal. Jake said. Varaseth's expression showed surprise. You want my champion? For what purpose? To train with him, Jake said. If humans are going to fight alongside Valdrine warriors, we need to learn how you fight. Thexnal is the best warrior I've ever faced. I want him to teach human soldiers his techniques. In exchange, I'll teach him how humans fight, how we adapt and endure. For the first time since entering the medical bay, Varaseth laughed. It was a strange sound, like wind chimes made of glass. You defeated him and destroyed his career as a champion. Now you want to make him a teacher? I ended his career as an arena fighter, Jake corrected. But he's still a warrior. Still someone with knowledge worth sharing. Unless Valdrine custom says he has to retire completely? No, Varaseth said slowly. There's no such custom. In fact, former champions often become trainers, but they usually train our own people, not aliens who broke their legs. Maybe it's time to start new customs, Jake suggested. Varaseth considered this. Then she nodded. I will speak to Thexnal. If he agrees, your request is granted. I think he might appreciate the opportunity. You gave him an honorable defeat, which is rare. Most of his opponents died or surrendered quickly. You made him work for his loss. She walked toward the door, then paused. Lieutenant Commander Morrison, when we met on your ship, I looked at you and saw weakness. I see differently now. Humans are not weak. You're dangerous in ways my people never considered. I'm glad we're going to be allies instead of enemies. After she left, Lisa sat in the chair the princess had vacated. Jake, do you have any idea what you just started? An alliance? He offered. A complete shift in the sector's power structure, Lisa said. The Valdrine Empire allied with humanity? Every other species is going to scramble to figure out what that means. Some will want to join. Others will see us as a threat. Can't please everyone, Jake said. He was getting tired again, his body demanding rest to heal. Earth Command is going to want a full report, Lisa continued. They're going to ask me how a simple mining negotiation turned into a military alliance. What do I tell them? Asks, Jake smiled. Tell them the truth. Tell them that a Valdrine princess made a mistake. She thought humans die easy. She learned different. Kate Palmer entered the medical bay carrying a datapad. She looked at Jake and shook her head. The video of your fight has been viewed 70 million times across the sector nets in the last 6 hours. There are analysis videos being made by military tacticians from 20 different species. Great, Jake muttered. That's exactly what I wanted. You're being called the human who wouldn't die, Kate continued. There's already a betting pool on how long you could last against champions from other species. No more arena fights, Jake said firmly. One was enough. Chris Bennett came back into the medical bay. All right, everyone out. My patient needs rest. His body is still healing, and you people standing around talking isn't helping. As Lisa and Kate left, Chris checked Jake's bandages. The regeneration is working well. You'll be back on your feet in a few days, though I recommend against fighting any more alien champions in the near future. Agreed, Jake said. He was already drifting back toward sleep. His last thought before unconsciousness took him was about Princess Varaseth's expression when she first entered the medical bay. It wasn't the bored superiority she had shown on the ship. It was respect. He had earned that respect one painful minute at a time. 3 days later, Jake stood in the conference room aboard the Horizon's Edge without bandages for the first time since the fight. His ribs still ached and his left arm was weak. But he could move. Dr. Bennett had cleared him for light duty. Though Chris had made Jake promise not to fight any more aliens for at least a month, the conference room was filled with people. Captain Lisa Chen sat at the head of the table. Beside her were Admiral Patrick Hayes from Earth Command, appearing via hologram, and Princess Varaseth with her advisors. This was the formal negotiation that would decide the future of human-Valdrine relations. Admiral Hayes looked tired. He had probably spent the last 3 days in emergency meetings trying to figure out how to handle this unexpected opportunity. Let me make sure I understand the proposal, he said. The Valdrine Empire wants a military alliance with humanity. Joint operations against the Hive Expanse. Technology. Sharing. And in exchange, we get access to Valdrine space, resources, and military support. That is correct, Varaseth said. My father, Emperor Thexvar, has reviewed the terms and given his approval. The Valdrine Empire recognizes that humanity possesses unique capabilities that would complement our own strengths. One of the Valdrine advisors, an older crystal-skinned alien named Korseth, added, We are not accustomed to partnerships. The Valdrine have always stood alone, confident in our superiority. But the war with the Hive Expanse has shown us the limitations of that approach. We need allies who can endure long campaigns and adapt to changing conditions. Admiral Hayes looked at Jake. Lieutenant Commander Morrison, you've had direct contact with the Valdrine military. What's your assessment? Jake chose his words carefully. The Valdrine are excellent warriors. Their strength and speed are significant advantages in combat. But they're not used to wars of attrition. They win battles through overwhelming force in short engagements. The Hive Expanse fights differently, using numbers and persistence. That's where humans can help. And you trust them? The Admiral asked. I trust that our interests align, Jake said. They need what we're good at. We need the resources and territory they can provide. It's a practical alliance, not one based on sentiment. Those tend to last longer. Loke. Varaseth smiled slightly at that. The human speaks wisdom. This is not a friendship. It's a strategic partnership between two species who can benefit each other. The negotiations continued for hours. They discussed troop deployments, technology exchange protocols, command structures for joint operations, and resource-sharing agreements. Jake participated when asked about military matters, but mostly he watched and learned. He noticed how the Valdrine negotiated. They were direct and honest about their capabilities and limitations. They didn't try to hide their weaknesses once they had acknowledged them. It was refreshing compared to some of the political games Jake had seen in human diplomacy. During a break, Thexnal entered the conference room. The former champion walked, with a noticeable limp, his left leg still recovering from the shattered knee. He approached Jake directly. "The princess told me of your request," Thexnal said. "You want me to train human soldiers." "If you're willing," Jake said. "I know I ended your career as a champion. I understand if you'd rather not work with humans." Thexnal's crystalline features arranged themselves into what might have been a smile. "You gave me the first real fight I've had in years. Most opponents in the arena were afraid before we even began. They saw my record and decided they had already lost. You saw my record and decided to find my weaknesses." He extended his hand in a human gesture. "I would be honored to train with your warriors. Perhaps I can teach them to fight like Valdrine. And perhaps they can teach me to endure like humans." Jake shook his hand carefully. "I think we can learn a lot from each other." "Lowe's. I watched the recording of our fight 12 times, Thexnal continued. "I saw every moment where I should have won, every strike that should have ended you. You should have fallen after the first hit to your ribs. But you kept moving, kept adapting." "How?" "Because falling meant losing," Jake said simply. "And I don't lose when it matters." "Valdrine warriors fight for honor and glory," Thexnal said. "What do humans fight for?" Jake thought about the question. "Survival. Progress. The belief that tomorrow can be better than today. We fight because giving up means accepting that things can't change, and humans are really bad at accepting that." The negotiations concluded just before sunset. Station time. The final agreement was extensive and complex, but the core was simple. Humanity and the Valdrine Empire would face the Hive Expanse together. Human forces would be integrated into Valdrine military operations. In exchange, humanity would receive protected territory in the Outer Rim, access to Valdrine technology, and formal recognition as a major power in the sector. Admiral Hayes signed the document from Earth. Emperor Thexvar, appearing via hologram for the first time, added his mark. Princess Vara Seth signed as the official representative who had negotiated the terms. When it was done, she looked at Jake. "This alliance began because I insulted you. I said you would be dead in a minute. I was wrong about the minute. I was wrong about humans. I'm glad I was wrong." "So am I," Jake admitted. "Though I could have done without the broken ribs." "Pain teaches us," Varaseth said. "You taught me that human endurance is a weapon as dangerous as any physical strength. I taught you that Valdrine pride can be transformed into respect when properly challenged." Captain Lisa Chen stood and addressed the room. "This is a historic moment. Humanity has been alone in the galaxy for 2 generations. Today, we gain our first true ally. Let's make sure we're worthy of that alliance." The Valdrine delegation departed, leaving the humans alone in the conference room. As soon as they were gone, Admiral Hayes let out a long breath. "Commander Morrison, when you were assigned to diplomatic duty, I don't think anyone expected you to start a war and end it with a military alliance in the space of a week." "I didn't start a war, sir," Jake said. "I just didn't die when someone expected me to. And now you're a symbol," the Admiral said. "The human who defeated a Valdrine champion. Every soldier in the fleet is going to want to meet you. Every diplomat is going to want to know how you turned an insult into an alliance." "I'd really rather just go back to my regular duties, sir," Jake said. "Not a chance," Admiral Hayes replied. "You're being promoted to commander and assigned to the new Joint Task Force. You'll be working directly with Thexnal to develop integrated combat training for human and Valdrine forces." Kate Palmer grinned. "Congratulations, Commander. You fought your way into a desk job." That's not funny," Jake said. But he was smiling too. Later, Jake stood alone in the observation deck, looking out at the Valdrine station. Ships moved between the station and various docking points, more traffic than he had seen before. The Alliance was already changing things. Human ships were being given access to areas that had been closed to them just days ago. Lisa Chen found him there. "You know what the best part of all this is?" she asked. "What?" Princess Varaseth didn't just learn about human endurance. She learned about human dignity. You could have gloated after winning. You could have humiliated Thexnal. Instead, you offered him respect and a new purpose. That impressed her more than the fight did. "He earned respect," Jake said. "He didn't have to accept the fight. He could have refused. But he honored his princess's choice, even knowing it might end badly for him. That takes courage." "You're a better diplomat than you think," Lisa observed. "I just treat people the way I'd want to be treated," Jake said. "Even if they're 7-foot-tall crystal aliens who can punch through steel." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the station. Then Jake said, "Do you think this alliance will last?" "I think it has a chance," Lisa said. "Both sides need each other. Both sides are willing to learn from each other. And it started with honesty. Even if that honesty was an insult. Sometimes the best relationships begin with conflict." Jake thought about Princess Varaseth's words in the arena. "You'll be dead in a minute, human." She had meant it as a fact, as certain as gravity. But she had been wrong. And that mistake had changed everything. "She was right about one thing," Jake said. "What's that?" "Humans don't know when to quit. It's our greatest strength and our biggest flaw. We keep going when every logical species would stop. We fight impossible fights. We chase impossible dreams." He smiled. "And sometimes, that stubbornness changes the galaxy. We're climb S. We're climb to stun. We're climb to stunned." The news of the Alliance spread through the sector at light speed. Other species watched with interest and concern as humanity and the Valdrine Empire began joint operations. Some sought similar alliances. Others began to worry about what this partnership might mean for the balance of power. But in the training facilities where human soldiers began working alongside Valdrine warriors, something unexpected happened. The two species learned from each other. Valdrine learned to pace themselves, to fight longer campaigns with patience. Humans learned techniques that utilized strength and speed they would never possess naturally, adapting them to their own style. Thexnal became one of the most respected trainers in the joint force. His students, both human and Valdrine, learned that strength came in many forms. Physical power was one, but endurance, adaptability, and the refusal to give up were strengths too. And whenever new recruits asked how the Alliance had started, they were told the story of Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison, who was told he would be dead in a minute and decided to prove that humans don't die on anyone else's schedule. The story always ended the same way, with Jake standing in an arena, broken but alive, looking up at a princess who had learned that judging species by their appearance was a mistake she would never make again. 1 minute had been enough to start a fight. 11 minutes had been enough to end it. And the alliance that grew from those 11 minutes would reshape the galaxy for generations to come.